Darkest Dungeon is surprisingly getting a brand new DLC. The original game, which was released 10 years ago, not the more recent sequel Darkest Dungeon 2. Developers Red Hook Studios is returning to a game most game companies would have considered finished years ago. The Fire's Edge DLC brings two new characters, at least for Darkest Dungeon. The Duelist and the Runaway are characters from Darkest Dungeon 2. But that's not all. The DLC also adds new districts and also a brand new mechanic. So you can be sure that there's going to be new content for Darkest Dungeon, not just something that's ported over from Darkest Dungeon 2. Pretty cool stuff for a game anyone would have thought was done and never going to get fresh new content from the developer. But Darkest Dungeon's surprising new DLC isn't an abnormal thing in the game industry these days. It is becoming somewhat of a trend. If we compare the player numbers on Steam between the sequel and the first game, Darkest Dungeon has something like 400% more players actively playing it today, which means a bigger potential revenue. Darkest Dungeon 2 averages just over 1,000 players a day. So, from a business perspective, this makes total sense. I mean, why ignore a game with a huge player base just because it's old? It's still an IP, a game they own that can still generate a good bit of profit for the company. This is becoming increasingly common. We've seen how Starbreeze decided to continue to support and release new paid content for Payday 2, despite releasing Payday 3, which didn't go down too well. Payday 3 had its issues, but Starbreeze was just being very practical by saying they will support both games going forward. Also, I do think Starbreeze was and maybe still is under some financial pressure. They did lay off staff recently as well. Then we have The Witcher 3, which is getting a brand new DLC in 2027. Granted, the reasons are probably not the same as Payday 2 or Darkest Dungeon. The Songs of the Past DLC acts as a bridge between The Witcher 3 and the upcoming Witcher 4, supposedly. Also, it's not developed by CD Projekt. I think more similarly to Red Hook Studios and the Darkest Dungeon situation is my favorite action RPG, Grim Dawn, and its creator Crate Entertainment. Grim Dawn was also released 10 years ago and just got a brand new DLC. By the time you watch this video, by the time I actually publish this video, Fangs of Astrakhan, which is a massive DLC that adds a new area, environments, new skills, foes, factions, game modes, and I can't even list how many more stuff. And just like Darkest Dungeon, Grim Dawn has a bigger player base than Crate's latest game, Farthest Frontier. There is no doubt in my mind the main reason why we are seeing more game companies returning to their popular older game is due to the economics of game development today. Costlier development of new games, new original IPs, which also there's no guarantee a new game would do well, even if they spent a boatload of money advertising it on the biggest stage.
Welcome to High Guard.
New IPs are a lot more riskier than the safer bet of developing content for older games, or in the case of a certain other game company, releasing definitive editions or remasters. Relic has found success with Dawn of War Definitive Edition, and I'm pretty sure Company of Heroes Definitive Edition will do well too. Then we have AAA or rather quadruple A slot company Ubisoft finding that their biggest hit isn't the next biggest installment in their blockbuster franchise, but a remaster of an old classic, Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced sold over 2 million copies on its first day of release. Studios under Microsoft, Bethesda specifically, has announced that they are or will be working on a Fallout 3 remaster as well as a Fallout New Vegas remaster. The data on this is crystal clear. Recent studies have found that PC gamers are spending 92% of their gaming time on older games rather than the latest hotness. They are playing games that are 6 or more years old. Why are PC gamers and gamers in general playing older games more? Some gamers say new games just aren't that great. It's often unfinished, buggy, and just not as good as the old one. And I'm looking at you, Europa Universalis 5. For some, it's the cost. New games are expensive. When you have older games going on sale for very little money, guess what people will spend their money on more? The cheaper but absolutely proven to be great experience older games. And for some others, it's more of a community thing. There is already an active community playing it with awesome mods for the older games, so they rather get the older game with an established community of players for multiplayer or mod support. I'd like to know your reason. I'm pretty sure you're playing an older game or two as well. What's the game you keep playing for years? Why do you prefer it to a newer game? I do see this trend of developing paid content for old games and remasters to continue to grow even larger, especially for bigger companies or even smaller ones. Any game company for that matter that has had a successful-ish title. I mean, the economic realities of today would push any developer to continue to support and create new stuff for their hit game for many years. I wonder what would have happened if, say, the developer of Endzone, A World Apart, made expansions for that game instead of, pivoting to making a sequel. Would they have survived instead of having to close down their studio? For studios that have real operational costs, these are tough times for developing new IPs, new original games that now seems to be something we can only depend on smaller independent teams or one developer games. But despite this trend and the numbers showing how successful polishing and remastering your big classic games could be, there are still some companies that are sitting on a pile of treasure of great classic games that choose not to do anything about them. This just doesn't make any business sense at all, EA. But what do I know about the video game business? I'm just some random PC gamer on YouTube who plays niche strategy games and rants about things. Anyway, I'd like to know your thoughts on this. What classic game deserves a remaster or new content? Appreciate the likes and subs, it really helps the channel out. Thanks for watching. Until next time, farewell, friends.